Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with we're going to call them discussion videos instead of rant videos here about a thing that's been on my mind. I've talked to a few people about foil prices and especially Modern Masters 1 and Modern Masters 2. We should start seeing spoilers tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. Today is Sunday. I think they start Monday. I'm not 100% sure on that. Really late out the gate with really trying to hype up the set, which I personally am hoping, crossing my fingers, that it's just because the set will be so jam-packed full of value that it's going to hype itself, and Wizards just didn't need to hype it. I still think that's a bad business model, but whatever. That's the only explanation that I can really come up with. So the discussion is on Modern Masters foils and why they are so terrible. I know that one of the reasons is Modern Masters 1 and Modern Masters 2 had low-quality foils, and I don't like the business model of one foil per pack. I think that it just really takes the specialness away from foils, and it really cuts into the price. Now, I've been talking to a few people about the foil prices having what we call a multiplier. And on standard, it's a little bit lower until the foils kind of go out of, or it kind of rotates out. Then the foil multiplier really increases after it leaves standard. But while it's in standard, it's still usually a healthy 2 to 3 times of its regular price for especially of the uncommon type foils and the cheaper rares. If you get up to the more expensive rares, sometimes the gap between foils and non-foils is a lot lower. But Modern Masters has an incredibly low foil multiplier. You can see this with basically any card that has been printed in Modern Masters 2 with a foil. Let's just click on one here for Dark Confidant. So you see the Dark Confidant foil it's about 37, and the foil from Modern Masters 2 is 52. 52 to 37, that's a tiny gap compared to other foils like the version in a Ravnica foil from the $39 up to $125. So you can see right there that has almost over a 4 times multiplier. For the Ravnica foil to the Ravnica normal to the non-Ravnica Ravnica normal to the foil Ravnica Dark Confidant. So that's because it's a lot more rare. With someone should break down the numbers of what the likelihood of getting a regular Dark Confidant in Modern Masters 2 and a foil Dark Confidant in Modern Masters 2, and just see how many out there exist, because I think the big reason is based upon supply. There's probably a lot more foil Dark Confidants in comparison to its Modern Masters regular as there was Ravnica foils based upon its Ravnica regular. So I have not been a fan of the foil. I think they should, of course, still keep foils in, but they should have the exact same rate of foils per pack or per booster box as they do with standard base sets. So what's the solution to not having foils? I think that there has to be some reason. It's a premium product, so there has to be something to push it over the edge. Now, the biggest problem with Modern, in my opinion, as being a store owner trying to get people into Modern, and as a player myself, you can check this out in my latest video where I'm using Wooded Foothills rather than, what's the green-black one? I don't even know the name of the damn thing, Verdant Catacombs, because I just don't want to dish off. How much is Verdant Catacombs going for these days? Jeez. Yeah, I'm not dishing off over 50. Let's get the exact breakdown of Verdant Catacombs. $68? I'm not paying $68 for a land that is slightly better than a Wooded Foothills. I mean, against Blood Moon, I guess it's much better because I can go get a basic swamp. But that is just ridiculous, going from a $14 card to a $68 card in the format, when all you really need is just one to go get your Shockland. So the problem, of course, Zendikar is there's a low print run compared to Khans of Tarkir, and these just continue to shot up in value. And this is what everybody wants in Modern. But I would not be surprised if they're spoiled tomorrow, the Fetchlands in Modern. But the problem is, if it's going to take a rare slot, is that takes away, that's 5 slots of lands they have to put in there. And if they wanted shocks, because Shocklands would be great for the format, because I already really have this hunch that it's going to be heavy on the multicolored because of the Stoic Angel being 3-color, and that the Ravnica set had a huge multicolor theme to it. So I think that they're going to take the Angel theme from Avacyn Restored, take the multicolor theme from Ravnica, and then maybe take like a graveyard / undying theme from the Innistrad block, and that's going to be the focal point of Modern Masters 3. So we're going to need ways to fix, and I think that Guildgates are just a duh to throw in. They're a common that can be at the land slot, but again, they're kind of crowding the space for how many commons are in the set, how many viable commons. And now if you add in Shocklands, or if you add in Fetchlands, and also the lands that we desperately want reprinted, like Caverns of Souls, like Grove of the Burnwills, like the Canopy, Horizon Canopy, then there just isn't a lot of room. I mean, you can't dedicate that many slots to lands. So what I propose, what I really hope that Modern Masters 3 had, is instead of the foil chasing, the premium feel comes that you do not get a basic land, that you only get a land with different rarities of common, rare 1, rare 2, and mythic. So that's my proposal, because you can just see that the mana base for this particular Abzan deck is just insane. Like, look at all the amount of money that has to go towards just 7 cards of Marsh Flats and Verdant Catacombs. If we reduce the price of the fetch lands, then the health of Modern will go significantly up. A deck like this, of course, will be a lot more attainable with Liliana the Veil, most likely being reprinted, and I think that accessibility, a $1,700 deck, is going to be able to it just kills a lot of the competitive feel, especially at the local level, when you have a new kid trying to transition over from Standard into Modern, and they're going up against a $1,700 deck. That is just, and especially when they're staring down deck lists and thinking that they need the Verdant Catacombs or the Marsh Flats, and it's really, really tough for me to try to convince people to make that type of leap, especially when a looming reprint is going to happen. So why Fetchlands specifically in this set? The biggest reason is I really think that Wizard is been on the down low with Frontier, or not the down low, just kind of not really talking much about Frontier, because I think that they do have another format in the works, but they don't want it with Fetchlands. I think that they don't like Delve and they don't like Fetchlands. I think Marrow and a few other people have sort of stated that, and that the only way then is to reprint Fetchlands in a Modern Masters set. Otherwise, they will get printed into oblivion, and Verdant Catacomb type cards or Scalding Tarn will go way, way, way down if they're printed in like Amonkhet or the next set. Because every set that we've increased in Magic players year after year. Even 2016 was a good year for Magic, and their latest sets did sell very well, and there's probably just more out there than previous sets. And it would completely crash the Fetchland market way, way, way down, and I think that it's just a smart move to keep trying to showcase them in their Modern Masters sets. When we get up to like Modern Masters 2019, or when is Cons legal for a Modern Masters reprint, they're going to need something to chase after, and there's absolutely nothing from those blocks that is worth any sort of money. Like, everything from Return to Ravnica on is such low value, except in the rare slot especially, except for a few cards out of some of the M sets or core sets, and a few rares, of course the Fetchlands type cards. So I think that really reprinting and not stifling the ability to have a good draft set, they should replace the land slot with, or the foil slot with, a land. So I propose how they could do this without really flooding the market is have a split between uncommons or common lands, which will be the Guildgates. So you're most likely 3 out of every 4 packs will have a Guildgate in it. Should have a Guildgate, and they'll help the fixing, because we saw like the Khans of Tarkir. And sometimes if they put like land slots in Khans of Tarkir, remember opening those packs and they had like 3 of the Khans of Tarkir lands in it? It's like, ugh, especially when you open that in sealed and you weren't going 5 colors. You just had so many like wasted cards in that particular slot. I mean, of course, Fate Reforged worked upon that as well, but I think in Modern Masters you're not going to be able to focus as much on the multicolored theme, and if you're putting way too many commons with lands that just add 2 colors, it just really devalues the whole set. I mean, just the feel of the set as a whole. So if they specifically say that, like Fate Reforged did, that you're going to get a Guildgate in every pack or another land, then that will allow them to still have the amount of cards that will create a great draft environment or sealed environment and great value without taking away from it. So, like I said, the whole foil prices don't even add that much expected value to the box of Modern Masters compared to other slots, because there's a foil in every stinking pack, especially commons. Common foils in a lot of the just kind of the bulk commons. I mean, most of the cards in Modern Masters are playable, and they used to have foils Like what are some of the foils out of, like, even like, what's that, like Pestermite, for example, that was reprinted in Modern Masters 1, and the foil price of Pestermite I think was pretty good until the foil from Modern Masters 1 just like killed it because there are just so many out there. So instead of wasting so many slots on this foil, they should put in the land, and then it would create the goals of the format. So my proposal is that 3 out of 4 have a Guildgate. Then the next slot I call Rare 1 slot, which would be a fetchland slot, which there's only 5 fetchlands available. So that would equal that if there is 1 out of 4 of the pack is going to have 3 slots out of that last fourth be dedicated. That means there'll be 3 per box of fetchlands. You'll get 3 fetchlands per box, and who wouldn't want that? It means that you'd have a 60% chance of pulling Scalding Tarn or a Verdant Catacombs. That would probably elevate the price back to where we need it to be for Modern Masters. It will sell Wizards all the boxes they need, and I think it would add to a huge influx of players into the Modern format. Now, since Shocklands are the focal point of the Modern Masters, but kind of lead to a weird draft environment if you're just fetch shocking a lot easier, I think that 2 of the remaining slots out of the 1/4 should go to the Shocklands. So Shocklands would be a 2 out of 10 or a 20% chance to pull a specific Shockland out of a box, and I think that's very comparable to how it was in Dragon's Maze. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you got about 2 per box in Dragon's Maze, and those did add to the supply of the Shocklands. Interesting enough, Hallowed Fountain just hit its all-time low for Shocklands. So we know that Return to Ravnica just has that much supply out there when cards like the Shocklands are continuing to go down. You see Overgrown Tomb at 7, Temple Garden at 8. These are way lower than they've ever been in the format. So, because a lot of the modern decks just want 1, so it's very easy just to tutor up 1. So the burden is on the fetchlands. So for every Shockland, you need about 4 fetchlands reprinted, and therefore that's the discrepancy, 3 out of 5 versus 2 out of 10 for that land slot. And the remaining Mythic slot will have 1 per box, or 1 out of 5, which is about a 20% per box, which I think is on par with most Mythics in standard-based sets, because there's like 12 Mythics per set, and you get 3 to 4 Mythics, so it's about a 25% chance of getting a specific Mythic in every box. So if you're looking for a Heart of Kron, for example, I think it's about, every 4 boxes you're going to get a Heart. You can always correct me if I'm wrong. My math might be completely off here, but I think it's 3 to 4 Mythics, 12 Mythics. Yeah, you do the math. So anyway, that would put the Mythics, the Grove of the Burnt, I'd put 4 in that slot. I'd put Maze's End as the bull crappy Mythic that, there's always going to be 1 in the box, and it works well with the Guildgates, and, Maze's End, it was a fun little... With Guildgates, of course, it's something that they can make a gate-type theme, and it would be the Mythic that every once in a while you go up against a sealed opponent that has the Maze's End. And that's that. And then the other 3 slots, we absolutely desperately need some cards, but if they print them in high volumes, it will incredibly kill the value of the cards. And that would be Grove of the Burnwills and the Horizon Canopy, and then I would put Caverns of Souls there as well. Other than I think Caverns does need a major reprint. I was very disappointed it wasn't in like From the Vault Angels, or I think there should be some sort of From the Vault Tribal or something like that where they can print it in to elevate the price of the Caverns of Souls as well. But I think 1 every 4 box would be perfect for Caverns. It's a 45 chase card. Possibly they could even put it in a rare slot, so there's a double chance, or a mythic slot, so there's a double chance of getting it in either a rare slot or a mythic slot. But I think that might kill just the ability to print it on the pages and then package it. So that's kind of my proposal. I really wish that Wizards would look at that, because there just isn't nearly the demand of foils that they thought. I mean, most of these foils, you can click on what are some other ones that have been printed, like Goyf. Goyf is the foil chaser of all foil chaser. And if you compare Goyf, we have the Modern Masters regular. It has about a 2 times multiplier, a little bit over 2 times multiplier in the Modern Masters 2, compared to the Modern Masters 1 that had a 6 times multiplier. So you can see that is just completely... Oh wait, never mind. I'm looking at MTGO versus it. So let's see. So oh wow, yeah. Modern Masters 119 versus 189 for the foil. That is just, and then 119 versus a 324. So you had about a little less than a 3 times multiplier on the first Modern Masters, but the second Modern Master foil just killed the price of foil Goyfs being down. That used to be the price of a regular Goyf, was the foil one. So the multiplier is very, very bad. Just shows that people just don't have the demand for that type of foil. There's just too many out there. So I think that if you compare that, let's go back to this bad boy here, the Grim Flayer. Should we see a higher multiplier for the Grim Flare? I guess the multiplier is pretty bad in Eternal but it's almost a 2 times, a little less than 2 for standard. But when that rotates out, I think you start to see a lot more growth in the foil, especially because we can see like the Scrap Each, or not the Scrap Each Scrounger, the band card, the Smuggler's Copter. The foil is still retaining its value because people still want those in particular decks that they play, whether it be like a Frontier deck or a Commander deck where they like the Copter. And so the foils hold their value, and of course the rotated rares lose their value. So I think Grim Flare is going to follow suit. That the foils will continue to stay high. Let's check one that's been recently rotated out of standard, see if I can find one. Like Scavenging Ooze had a foil printing, so that's a bad example. See if we can find like a, Jesus, is there even one that, see Thoughtseize. See if Thoughtseize foil is worth a lot out of Theros. Yeah, there we go. So a foil Thoughtseize retains a ton of its value. $11 for the normal, has almost a 4 times multiplier for the standard one, just because of how rare it is in comparison to the normal foil. But if this was to be reprinted, which it probably will next Modern Masters, and they keep it with the foil slot, there will just be a very minuscule difference between the foil rare and the regular rare. So that's just my thought. Let me know in the comment section what you think about that, about my proposal. It is definitely the land base that keeps people back. You can see it with is there someone that spends more money on Magic than me? I don't really think there is, because I'm a brewer. And so we have this, how much money, I get a lot through, I trade my cards back on MTGO. I get some donations here and there for cards. So, I mean, I spend a crap ton of money, though. I should pull up my history of how many tickets I've purchased from MTGO, just because of how the variety of decks that I need to play and the variety of cards that I need for those decks. And it's so if someone like me is like not running Verdant Catacombs because it's like, oh man, I really don't want to spend that type of dough, and I'm playing Magic probably more hours per week than, I'm in the top 1 percentile easily for someone that plays the number of hours I spend on Magic the Gathering, and I don't even want to make that investment. Yeah, there's a huge need for those land reprints. So hopefully Wizards will get it together. Hopefully that's what we'll see. I can see it happening, and I'm crossing my fingers for the Fetchlands being, well, I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. Everyone knows my love for Frontier. In fact, I'm going to put a video out of how to play the same deck in Standard, Frontier, and Modern. It's kind of my go-to deck, and I hate it in Standard right now because it's the top deck, but I love it in Frontier and I love it in Modern, which is kind of the Hardened Scales brews. And I don't know, where was I going with this train of thought? I can't even think where I was even going with it. But, everyone knows that I love Frontier. And one of the reasons I love Frontier is I do love good mana. And the Fetchlands being available in Frontier, if they only have half of them, and if they get a reprint in Modern Masters, the Zendikar Fetchlands, then I think it's going to be really hard to justify Frontier going forward if we're not going to finish off the cycles. There's also the problem of the Fastlands, though, having Scars and Mirrodin specific names being printed in like a Frontier type forward going forward, as it's very yeah, and even the Battlelands, right, the enemy colored Painlands do not exist in Frontier either. So the mana is very awkward, and I think if we take out the Fetchlands, or if we don't reprint the Fetchlands in a Frontier based format, it's just going to continue to stay awkward for its entire life, and therefore it might just be the best to start Origins forward or something else forward and not have half the cycle if they're never planning on reprinting it in a Frontier-based set. So that's kind of the double-edged sword. I want them for Modern, but I don't want them just because it might just be the nail in the coffin for that type of format. But I'll keep promoting it regardless. I mean, it's still a grassroots-type movement. We don't need Wizards to, like, all the formats that aren't really Wizards-sponsored at all are still thriving. I'd even say that Modern is kind of turning into that direction, and I still think that Modern will continue to be a stagnant but healthy format. It'll be very similar to Legacy. Legacy's only grown in popularity just because Magic as a whole has grown in popularity, and I think that will continue for Modern. But I would like to see some huge problems addressed with the format, and one of them being the scarcity of the Zendikar Fetchlands. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.